Hello everybody. Well, today is February the 8th, 2012, and I'm sure by now that all of you, or most of you, have heard about Josh Powell, uh, his death and the death of his two sons, which is very, very disturbing to me. Out of all of the things that have happened over the past several years, the children that go missing and they're found murdered, and all the missing women, and out of all of those things that's happened, this probably is the most disturbing to me. uh, they call everything a tragedy, but they said tragedy doesn't even suit it. It's sheer evil, which it is. um, if you and another reason I do these videos is because a lot of you don't watch the news, but it serves for me as like a video diary. That's what I like my videos for, is a video diary. And sometimes I'll just go back and go through my videos, and I like to announce the date on them, so I know, maybe when I'm a little old woman, if I get to be that way, then I can look back on them and see the things that's happened. But Josh Powell, if any of you remember, his wife Susan went missing in 2009 in Utah. He said that he took his two little boys on a camping trip and they made s'mores. And this was in the dead winter in 0-degree weather. And he claimed he took his two little boys camping to make s'mores that night. And when he came home, she was gone. Susan was gone. Didn't know what happened to her. Her purse was still there, everything, but she was gone. And so to this day, they've not found her body. He has never been arrested. He's always been a person of interest, but I guess they've had no proof. After about the first 2 months, maybe, if that long, that she had gone missing, Josh Powell sold his home, sold his and Susan's home, and moved him and his two boys in with his dad, where they lived up until last fall. I'm not sure whether it's October or November, but it was on breaking news on CNN, and I watched it when it happened last year, that they came into his dad's house and confiscated his computers and a lot of stuff out of his dad's house. And come to find out, his Josh Powell's dad was charged with I think child sexual abuse. They found where he had pictures of naked girls in their bathrooms. So who's planting these cameras? He had to have been doing it. And Josh Powell's dad had even said that Susan, the missing woman, had come on to him, and that him and Susan had a thing going on, which is a blatant lie. And so when all this was going on, it sort of shifted the blame a little bit to where maybe you thought the father-in-law did it, maybe Josh's dad did it. But anyway, Josh's dad was arrested last fall. Well, when this happened, Susan's parents went and asked for custody of the children, which they were granted custody, but with visitation right. Josh Powell had visitation right, but it had to be supervised. He went to court last week to try to get his children back, his boys back. But the judge said she would not grant him custody of the boys until he took a psychosexual evaluation. Not quite sure what that is. But I don't think he was too happy about that. Not sure why. But anyway, so Saturday or Sunday. I've heard a couple of news reports that say Saturday, but most say Sunday, when the social worker took the children to Josh Powell's house for visitation. Now, ordinarily, they say that if you have supervised visitation, it's not to be done in the home, it's to be done in a neutral place, such as a restaurant, a park, the mall, maybe, some kind of public place, but certainly not in the person's own home. And why they granted visitation in that home, I'm not sure. I'm sure that's going to be looked into. The social worker, the grandparents had said that the boys on that particular day did not want to go. They did not want to go see their dad. But the grandmother, talked them into it, and so they went. And when they got to the door, of course, he, took the boys inside, and when the social worker was going to come in, Josh Powell slammed the door in her face and did not allow her in. Which, if she had got in, she would be gone today too. But, so she went back to the car and called her supervisor, and then called authorities saying she smelled gasoline. And then the house exploded. So he exploded that house with himself and the two little boys. This is what I wonder. Was he drugged up when that happened? Was he high? Because the kids weren't. The kids knew everything that was going on. And the devil was in Josh Powell. Josh Powell, the devil existed in him. And so I believe that the reason he killed him, he claims he killed him in a voicemail, whatever it was he left. He said he couldn't go on without his boys. And that he was sorry, goodbye. I say good riddance, but who am I? Anyway, so his way of thinking was that he couldn't go on without his boys. And some people say, well, he probably felt so guilty about killing Susan that, no, the devil never feels guilty. The devil don't feel guilty. And the devil was inside Josh Powell, made him do that. Now the devil just, jumped out of his body after he died and moved into somebody else. So somebody else going to come along and go stupid. But I say that the reason that he killed his boys is because of the fact that his boys had started to talk. Now his boys were 3 and 5 when their mom disappeared. The boys were 5 and 7 when they died. They drew a picture, I believe, for the grandparents, and of the night that they went camping. And the boys had said that Mommy was in the trunk, that Daddy was driving, they were in the back seat, and Mommy was in the trunk of the van. They had a van, so I'm assuming in the back of the van. And that they went to this cave, and that Daddy got out, Mommy got out, and they went in the cave, and Daddy came out, but Mommy didn't come out. That Mommy stayed in there to find crystals. And then they said when they questioned them farther, that they would just stop and look at each other, and then they would say, I don't remember. I don't remember. So they were coached by their dad to say, I don't remember. Now, what he said to them to make them keep quiet, I don't know. I don't know whether he threatened them or whether he said, if you tell anybody, then Mommy won't ever get to come home. He probably said something like that to make them think, well, if I don't say anything, then Mommy will come home sooner. So these boys had such a tragic life because at the ages of 3 and 5, they lost their mom. And they, in their way of thinking, they can't process death in a way that we do, and especially just a disappearance. They can't process that. They must have thought their mother just left them, didn't love them anymore, and she left them. And so that made them probably love their father even more because they probably clung to him more. He was the only parent that they had left. And so they would do anything for him, and they loved him. And then for him to, just 2 years later, for him to do this to them, it's morbid. It's satanic. It's evil. Those two little, and some people say too, well, the boys didn't want to go over there that day. They shouldn't have made them go. It's not the grandparents' fault. If the grandparents hadn't made them go, they'd have gone to jail, and then they would have lost custody. And so nobody is to blame. The judge can't be to blame for granting these boys. For granting Josh Powell visitation with his sons. The judge can't be to blame for that because even though he was a suspect, it was supervised visitation. And the boys loved their father. So, the judge couldn't very well take that away from the boys. Nobody could have seen this coming. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw this coming. And the other day, when it happened, I was sitting here and I was online, and I had the TV on CNN, and I heard them talking about, a father that had blew the house up with his two young sons in it, and I was sitting here thinking to myself, that's awful. And then I looked at the TV and I saw his picture, and oh my God, I was just so shocked, because I'd followed that case ever since Susan Powell disappeared, and I was just shocked beyond belief. I was so shocked I had a hard time sleeping, and so it was just sad. It's sad. And the only good thing that came out of it is he's burning in hell right now, and the boys are with their mother. They're safe with their mother. So, but if the boys are saying that Mommy and Daddy went in the cave and Daddy came out, I do believe they searched some caves one time, but they never found anything. So, he's got it really, really stashed away and hidden in there, or they weren't in the right cave or didn't go in far enough. But they said the youngest boy pointed to a picture, had a wound on the chest, and of his mom in the picture, and he said that's Mommy's boo-boo. So apparently she was wounded in the chest. She could not have been shot. She couldn't have been stabbed. Luminol would have showed blood in the van and in the trunk, and it didn't. So however she was wounded, she was not bleeding. Oh, and when Josh Powell blew up the house with him and his two boys in it, according to the autopsy reports, he had struck the two boys with a hatchet. So not only were the boys in the middle of all this fire with their dad, the man that they loved and trusted, but he's hitting them with a hatchet. One of the boys, they said, was struck in the neck, and the other one was struck in the neck and in the head. So, just evil. He's just the devil. And I honestly had such a hard time sleeping that night. It's just so sad. It's sad beyond words. But, so now, as far as Susan Powell goes, she may be like Natalie Holloway, and we may never find her body. And we certainly will never know the answers. I'm sure Josh Powell's dad knows something. I'm sure of that. Because why would Josh sell his house 2 months after the disappearance and move in with his dad? And his dad get on national TV and tell all those lies about Susan. His dad's evil too. So his dad knows something. I'm sure him and his dad sat at the house and talked about what he did to Susan. I could see Josh's dad saying, well, Susan came on to me, son, you're better off without her. And I can hear Josh saying, I killed that whore, I can see all that. Hell, they were probably in on it together. So, anyway. Well, that's really all I have to talk about on that one. And I want to do a video tomorrow about taxes.